Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're uncovering the story of Hans Christian Ørsted, a scientist who made a huge discovery back in 1820.
A discovery that changed the world as we know it.
He found the connection between electricity and magnetism.
Yeah. But he wasn't just a scientist.
Yeah.
He was also a philosopher, a poet, a true Renaissance man.
Wow. Okay. So how did this philosopher-poet make one of the most important scientific discoveries of all time?
Well, it all starts in Denmark back in 1777.
Okay.
Ørsted and his brother were largely self-taught.
Really?
Yeah, driven by this, insatiable thirst for knowledge.
So they were just learning everything on their own.
Pretty much. And get this, they both went on to achieve academic success at the University of Copenhagen.
That's incredible, especially back then without, the structured education we have today.
Right. It's amazing what they accomplished.
Talk about the power of curiosity, huh?
Totally. And his interests weren't limited to just science.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, he actually earned a doctorate in philosophy.
No way.
Yeah.
What was his focus?
He was really into Immanuel Kant's work.
No, interesting.
This background in philosophy, it actually played a big role in his scientific thinking later on.
I can see how that might be. So his dissertation, I read it, explored the idea of the architectonics of natural metaphysics. What in the world does that even mean?
Basically, he was wrestling with some big questions. The fundamental structure of knowledge.
Okay, yeah.
And how we understand the natural world.
Deep stuff.
He was looking for the underlying principles, the things that connect seemingly different phenomena.
Uh-huh.
This fascination with connections, it became a driving force in his scientific work.
I see. So he's got this deep philosophical background, but he wasn't just thinking in an armchair.
No, not at all.
Ørsted was also traveling all over Europe, meeting other scientists and thinkers, right?
Exactly. He was making connections everywhere he went.
And I bet those encounters really shaped his thinking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the most influential encounters, it was with Johann Wilhelm Ritter.
And who was he?
He was a physicist who, like Ørsted, believed in a link between electricity and magnetism.
So they both thought these two forces were connected somehow.
Yeah. And this meeting, it really sparked something in Ørsted. It fueled his desire to find scientific proof for this connection.
Okay, so Ritter planted the seed. But then, in 1800, Alessandro Volta invents the voltaic pile, the first electric battery, right? The first one that could provide a continuous electric current.
Right.
How did that invention change things for Ørsted?
I mean, imagine for the first time ever having a reliable source of electricity to experiment with.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The voltaic pile. It opened up a whole new world of possibilities for scientists like Ørsted. They were all eager to understand this mysterious force.
It's like giving a powerful new tool to someone who's already brimming with ideas.
Exactly. And Ørsted didn't waste any time. This invention, it just ignited his fascination with electricity.
I bet.
And he started conducting his own experiments meticulously,
Yeah.
just exploring its properties and effects.
And this is where we start to see his very unique approach to science.
Oh, how so?
Well, around 1812, he actually names the concept of a Gedanken experiment.
Ah, a thought experiment.
Yes. Have you ever thought through a problem in your head, before actually trying it out?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Well, Ørsted was a master of this.
Really?
He used thought experiments to kind of push the boundaries of scientific inquiry, exploring ideas that couldn't yet be tested in a lab.
So like a mental rehearsal.
Exactly. It's like he was training his mind to see connections that others might have missed.
Fascinating. And his thought experiments weren't just about electricity and magnetism. He applied this across different fields, from chemistry to physics.
Speaking of chemistry, he made some interesting discoveries there too, right?
He did?
Didn't he extract piperine from pepper?
That's right.
And he designed a new kind of piezometer.
Yeah, a piezometer, to measure the pressure of liquids.
What a range.
Wow.
These might seem like totally unrelated areas of study, but for Ørsted, it was all part of a bigger puzzle. Right. He was looking for the underlying connections, the fundamental principles that govern the natural world.
He was a big picture thinker, for sure.
So he becomes a professor at the University of Copenhagen in 1806.
Hmm.
He's making these contributions across so many different fields.
Yeah,
But something tells me there's a much bigger discovery on the horizon.
but you got that right. So it's 1820.
Mm.
Ørsted's in his lab. Wires, batteries, compasses everywhere. He's been conducting experiments driven by this belief.
But there's got to be a connection between electricity and magnetism.
Exactly. Years of work, but still.
Still no proof.
Right. But then during one of his experiments,
Yeah.
he notices something really strange.
Okay, this is where it gets good.
So picture this. He's got a wire hooked up to a voltaic pile.
Creating an electric current.
Right. And nearby there's a compass just sitting there.
Okay.
So he switches the current on. The compass needle, which usually points north,
Yeah.
it moves.
No way.
Yeah, it deflects just a bit,
Yeah.
like some invisible force is acting on it.
Wow. That must have been a pretty amazing moment for him.
Oh, absolutely.
So this simple observation, this tiny little movement of the compass needle,
Yeah,
that was the breakthrough.
it was. You see, compasses work because their needles are like tiny magnets,
Okay.
aligning with Earth's magnetic field.
Right, right.
What Ørsted saw was that the electric current flowing through the wire, it was creating its own Baguian magnetic field,
Oh.
strong enough to actually affect the compass needle.
So that little twitch of the needle,
Yeah.
it was proof that electricity could create magnetism.
Exactly. It wasn't just a random thing,
Yeah.
This was the result of years of research and careful thinking.
This wasn't just a lucky accident.
Nope. There's this myth that it happened by chance during a lecture.
Oh, I've heard that.
Ørsted's experiments were meticulously planned out,
This was a scientist testing his hypothesis.
Yes. And finally, the evidence was right there in front of him.
What a moment. So for the first time, there was undeniable proof of a direct relationship between electricity and magnetism.
Right.
I mean, this challenged the entire scientific understanding at the time.
Absolutely.
It must have blown people's minds.
It did. It opened up so many possibilities.
It's like suddenly realizing that two things, two forces of nature that seem completely separate,
Yeah.
are actually connected.
They're intertwined.
Like a cosmic dance or something.
Exactly. And you know what's so elegant about Ørsted's discovery?
What?
You could show it with such a simple setup.
Really?
Just a wire, a battery, and a compass.
Huh.
No fancy equipment or anything.
Wow. So how did the rest of the scientific community react to this?
It was huge E. Scientists all over Europe were excited about Ørsted's findings.
I bet.
It set off a ton of new research on electromagnetism.
Yeah.
Everybody was trying to build on this foundation he'd laid.
And Ørsted himself, I mean, he must have gotten some serious recognition.
Oh, yeah. He received some of the most prestigious awards, including the Copley Medal.
Wow. From the Royal Society of London.
That's the one.
That's a big deal.
One of the highest scientific honors, even back then. It showed that his discovery was seen as a major contribution to science.
He was among the greats.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about recognition,
What do you mean?
Well, Ørsted's discovery had real practical implications.
Like what?
Like, it paved the way for technologies that would change everything.
I'm thinking the telegraph.
Exactly.
Being able to send messages instantly across huge distances, that's revolutionary.
Right.
But how did that actually happen?
Well, after Ørsted, one of the key figures was this brilliant French physicist, André-Marie Ampère.
Okay.
He was inspired by Ørsted's work and started doing his own research.
Huh.
He developed these mathematical formulas to explain the magnetic forces between current-carrying wires.
So Ørsted kind of opens the door, and Ampère helps us walk through it.
That's a great way to put it. And yeah, their combined work is what led to the telegraph.
Wow. So understanding how electricity and magnetism work together, it led to devices that could control and manipulate these forces.
Right.
And that's how the telegraph was born. Communication was changed forever.
It really was. And, it's a testament to how much one breakthrough can lead to so many others.
It's just amazing how this one discovery, this tiny little compass needle moving,
I know, right?
it had such huge consequences.
Yeah. It shows how interconnected our world is.
Not just physically.
But in terms of knowledge and discovery, too.
Exactly. So Ørsted keeps going, right? He doesn't stop there.
No, he doesn't. He actually goes on to found this organization, the Society for the Dissemination of Natural Science.
So he wants to share his passion for science.
Exactly.
Right.
He wanted everyone to understand and explore the natural world.
Inspiring. So he wasn't just happy making these groundbreaking discoveries himself.
Right.
He wanted to spread that love of learning.
He was also super important in setting up the Danish Meteorological Institute.
Wow.
And the Danish Patent and Trademark Office.
So not just pure science then?
Nope.
But also figuring out how to use science to make society better.
It's all connected for him. And in 1829, get this, he founds Den Polyteknisk Lurianstalt.
What's that?
It later became the Technical University of Denmark.
Wow. So he's involved in education, public institutions, all these technological advancements?
Yeah.
He's everywhere.
It's like he's always searching for those connections,
Yeah.
between different scientific fields, between science and society, between science and art even.
That's a really interesting point. And it leads us to something else about Ørsted. Something kind of surprising.
Okay, now I'm really curious. Okay, so spill the beans. What's this surprising thing about Ørsted?
Well, remember how we talked about his fascination with connections and underlying principles?
Yeah, he saw them everywhere.
It wasn't just about science for him. Ørsted, believe it or not, was a published poet.
Wait a minute, the guy who discovered electromagnetism?
The one and only.
He wrote poetry. That's amazing. What kind of stuff did he write? He often explored the beauty and wonder of the natural world.
I see.
For instance, he wrote a series of poems called Luftskibet, meaning the airship.
The airship? Was he, like, writing about hot air balloons?
Exactly. He was inspired by the hot air balloon flights of Étienne Gaspard Robert.
Who's that?
He was a physicist and a magician who was wowing audiences with these aerial demonstrations.
Oh, cool.
Ørsted was fascinated by this new technology, how it allowed you to see the world from a whole new perspective.
So even in his poetry, we see this theme of connections, right? Bridging different fields.
Right.
Like he's finding the science in the art and the art in the science.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's this perfect example of how two things that seem completely different can actually inform and enrich each other.
For him, poetry wasn't just a side hobby.
No.
It was another way to explore the world and share what he was learning.
Exactly. It speaks to his incredible mind. This wasn't a scientist stuck in a lab somewhere.
Right.
This was a guy who found beauty and wonder all around him.
Yeah. And that way of thinking, that curiosity, it extended to his philosophical work, too. Didn't he write The Soul in Nature?
He did. It was published after he passed away in 1852. It explores the relationship between the human spirit and the natural world.
So almost bridging the gap between science and spirituality.
It's like he was trying to find this harmony, this balance between those two worlds.
A holistic understanding of the universe.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Ørsted thought real knowledge wasn't just about facts and figures.
Right.
It was about appreciating the beauty, the mystery even of the universe.
And how everything's connected.
Exactly.
I think that resonates even more today,
Oh, I agree.
We live in a world that can feel so divided.
Yeah.
But Ørsted's example reminds us to take a step back and look at the bigger picture.
To remember those connections.
The power of thinking across different disciplines.
Absolutely. And even today, Ørsted's legacy is everywhere, especially in Denmark.
Oh, yeah.
Streets are named after him, parks, institutions. He's even on banknotes. And then, of course, there's the Ørsted.
The unit of magnetic field strength.
Right. Named in his honor.
Denmark considers him a national treasure.
Absolutely. But his influence goes way beyond Denmark's borders, too. There's the H.C. Ørsted Institute at the University of Copenhagen.
A major research center.
Exactly. And they even have the H.C. Ørsted Lecture Series. It brings together brilliant minds in science to talk about all this cutting-edge research and inspire new generations of thinkers.
It's amazing how one person can have such a lasting impact. As we wrap up our deep dive into Ørsted's life, what do you hope our listeners will take away from this?
Well, I think, first and foremost, his incredible curiosity.
Yeah.
His passion for understanding how the world works. He wasn't just satisfied with being told things. He was constantly asking questions, experimenting.
Always searching for deeper knowledge.
Exactly.
And he showed us that knowledge isn't limited to just one area.
Right.
His work spanned science, philosophy, poetry, even spirituality.
He was a true Renaissance man.
He saw the connections where others saw boundaries,
I know.
And that approach led him to some of the most incredible discoveries of his time.
And lastly, his legacy is just this incredible reminder. One person, driven by curiosity and a love for knowledge, can really change the world.
And it's a change that continues to this day.
Absolutely. The next time you see a compass move, or you send a text, or you just look around and see the amazing things technology can do.
Take a minute to think about Hans Christian Ørsted.
The philosopher-poet who helped us understand electromagnetism.
And really showed us the beauty of a connected world. This was a fantastic deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey.
My pleasure.
And who knows what other incredible people and discoveries are out there just waiting to be uncovered. Keep exploring, keep asking those questions. And until next time, stay curious.